Imagine two friends, united by a single, powerful purpose. This is the story of Paul and Barnabas, a tale of brotherhood, faith, and the incredible journey they embarked on together. Their story isn't just about spreading a message. It's about a friendship that would change the world. Our story begins in Antioch, a bustling city where different cultures collided. Here, a man named Barnabas, known for his generous heart and encouraging spirit, saw something special in a newcomer named Saul, who would later be known as Paul. While others were suspicious of Paul because of his past, Barnabas saw his potential. He took a chance, vouched for him, and brought him into the community. This single act of trust was the seed from which a legendary partnership would grow. It was Barnabas who saw the fire in Paul's eyes, a passion that, if guided correctly, could light up the world. Soon, they were called to a mission unlike any other. They were to travel to distant lands, sharing their beliefs with people who had never heard their message. Leaving the comfort of Antioch behind, they sailed to the island of Cyprus. This was their first test, a journey into the unknown. Barnabas, a native of Cyprus, likely felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, returning to his homeland not as a simple citizen, but as a messenger. Paul, newer to this life, followed his friend's lead, his mind sharp and ready for the challenges ahead. In Cyprus, they faced their first major obstacle, a cunning magician named Barnabas who tried to turn the local governor against them. But Paul, filled with a newfound conviction, confronted the magician directly. In a moment of dramatic power, Barnabas was struck with temporary blindness. The governor, witnessing this incredible event, was astonished and became a believer. This victory was a turning point. From this moment on, Paul began to take a more prominent role in their partnership. It wasn't a power struggle, but a natural shift, a recognition of Paul's powerful gift for speaking and debating. Their journey continued to the city in Antioch. Standing before the people in the local synagogue, Paul delivered a powerful sermon, connecting their history to his message. The crowd was captivated. Many were moved and wanted to hear more. For a moment, it seemed like their mission was an overwhelming success, but success often attracts opposition. The next week, when an even larger crowd gathered, some local leaders grew jealous of their influence. They stirred up trouble, turning a portion of the city against Paul and Barnabas, and eventually had them expelled from the region. Shaking the dust from their feet, as was the custom, they didn't despair. Instead, they moved on to the city of Iconium. It was a pattern that would repeat itself throughout their travels. They would find an eager audience, experience great success, and then face fierce opposition that forced them to leave. In Iconium, they spoke with such conviction that a great number of people came to believe. But once again, a plot was hatched to harm them, and they had to flee for their lives. Their journey was not a peaceful stroll. It was a constant dance between triumph and persecution. Their next stop was Lystra, a place where something truly extraordinary happened. Paul healed a man who had been unable to walk since birth. When the townspeople saw the man leap to his feet, they were in absolute awe. They mistakenly believed Paul and Barnabas were gods who had come down to earth, calling Barnabas Zeus and Paul Hermes. The local priest even prepared to offer sacrifices to them. Horrified, Paul and Barnabas tore their clothes in distress, rushing into the crowd to stop them. They cried out that they were only human, just like them, and that their power came from a source far greater. This moment reveals the depth of their character. In the face of adoration and potential glory, they chose humility. They refused to accept worship meant for a higher power. However, the mood of the crowd was fickle. Soon after, their enemies from Antioch and Iconium arrived and turned the people of Lystra against them. The same crowd that had tried to worship them now turned violent. They dragged Paul out of the city and stoned him, leaving him for dead. It was a brutal, terrifying moment, the lowest point of their journey so far, but the story doesn't end there. As the disciples gathered around Paul's seemingly lifeless body, he stood up. Miraculously, he was alive. Can you imagine the relief and shock Barnabas must have felt? Seeing his friend, his partner, rise after such a brutal attack must have solidified his faith like never before. Instead of running away, the very next day, they courageously went on to the next town, Derbe. Their resolve was unbreakable. They were bruised but not broken. After their time in Derbe, they did something remarkable. They retraced their steps, going back through Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, the very cities where they had faced persecution and near-death experiences. Why would they risk returning to such dangerous places? Because their mission wasn't just about sharing a message, it was about building communities. They went back to encourage the new believers, to appoint leaders, and to strengthen their faith, reminding them that their path would involve challenges, but was ultimately worth it. This shows their incredible courage and their deep love for the people they served. Finally, their long and arduous journey came to an end. They sailed back to Antioch, the city where it all began. They gathered the community together and shared everything that had happened: the successes, the hardships, the miracles, and the opposition. They reported how they had opened a door of faith to people all over the world. It was a moment of triumphant return, a testament to what two friends, united in purpose, could achieve. However, no friendship is without its trials. Sometime later, as they planned a second journey, a sharp disagreement arose between them. Paul wanted to travel again, but he was hesitant to bring along a young companion named John Mark, who had left them during their first trip. Paul saw it as a sign of unreliability, but Barnabas, true to his nature as the son of encouragement, wanted to give John Mark a second chance. He believed in forgiveness and redemption. This disagreement became so sharp that these two great friends, who had faced down angry crowds and powerful magicians together, could not reconcile their differences. It was a painful moment. They decided to part ways. Barnabas took John Mark and sailed for Cyprus, returning to where their journey first began. Paul chose a new partner, Silas, and set off on his own path. It seems like a tragic end to such a powerful partnership, a fracture in a bond that seemed unbreakable. But was it truly the end, or was it simply a new beginning? By parting ways, they effectively doubled their efforts. Now, instead of one missionary team, there were two. Barnabas continued his work, mentoring John Mark, who would later go on to become a valuable figure in the early community and, according to tradition, write one of the Gospels. Paul, with Silas, embarked on a new series of journeys that would take his message even further, across Greece and eventually to Rome. Years later, in one of his letters, Paul mentions Mark again, asking for him to come because he is helpful to me in my ministry. This small line speaks volumes. It suggests that time had healed the wound. Paul had come to see the value in Mark that Barnabas had seen all along. The friendship between Paul and Barnabas, though it went through a painful separation, ultimately bore incredible fruit. Their disagreement led to an expansion of their work, not its destruction. The story of Paul and Barnabas is a powerful reminder that even the strongest relationships face challenges. It teaches us about courage, forgiveness, and the power of giving someone a second chance. It shows that disagreements don't have to be the end of the story. Sometimes, they are just a detour on the path to a greater purpose. Their journey, which started with one man's act of trust, branched into two paths, but both led toward the same goal, reaching more people than they ever could have together. Their legacy is not just in the places they went, but in the friendship they shared, a friendship that, even in its breaking, served to build something much larger than themselves. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content.